right? We have no school tomorrow. So make sure you come in Thursday morning, and we will take care of that. Okay. This is kind of good because it's actually the same do it as yesterday. I don't know why that is, but it is. And what's really good about it is that we didn't get to do the do it yesterday in class, so we'll get to do the do it today in class. Okay? F of x is equal to x squared plus 9x. Evaluate f of 1. Now, it is extremely important, in my opinion, that when we read this, we learn to read it as we take the input, square it, and add 9 times it. I think it's very important to look at it that way. So, if I hand it a 1, then the input is 1, so 1 squared plus 9 times 1. 1 squared is 1, 9 times 1 is 9, and 1 plus 9 is 10. Okay? This is a very typical kind of part 1 question. Usually you need to do more than just that, but that's an integral part of the part 1 question. And I'm reminded, I look at James. You missed yesterday's class for lessons, right? Which is cool. There's never an issue with that. Unless we have a test, then you stay here. But it's so important to watch the video when you're home because you fall a step behind, okay? And you were not as prepared for that quiz as others because you hadn't seen the first day of it. You know what I mean? But on the do it, or I should say on the video, we went over the quiz in its entirety. Next, f of x is negative x squared. What's the output if the input is 2? What you have to know here is this is saying square it, then negate it. That's the tricky part of this question. Don't negate it first. First you square it. That's the order of operations. Square it, then negate it. So if I hand it a 2, what's 2 squared?
4.
4. Then I negate it. It's negative 4. Okay? And that leads us to the next question, which is a similar concept. When it says here, f of x is 2x squared minus 3x plus 7, this says you take the input, because x is the input, first you square it, then you multiply by 2. Then you do minus 3 times the input plus 7. So this is 2 times negative 5 squared minus 3 times negative 5 plus 7. What is negative 5 squared? 25. Then I double that and I get 50. Now, what's negative 3 times negative 5? Positive 15. This is a 0, not a 6. Okay? And then plus 7. So 50 plus 15 is 65, plus 7 is 72. Yes?
How come on that one you negated it before you did the exponent and on the other one you don't?
Oh, I didn't negate it. First off, do you see how it's in parentheses because it's the whole input that's being squared? So what this means is negative 5 squared means negative 5 times negative 5, which would be positive 25. The previous problem means negate 2 squared. So I have to do 2 squared, which is 2 times 2, and then negate it. All right? And that's not a difficult thing. I mean, I am positive that every one of you understands the difference in how to do each. The tricky part is, are you able to understand what it is they're asking you to do? So it's a language thing. It's the language of mathematics. There was this movie years ago called Contact. It starred Matthew McConaughey and Jodie Foster. And there was this array of things where they're looking for signals from deep space. And lo and behold, these numbers come back, which formed a sequence, a prime sequence, and so on. And they said, this is the language of science. And I remember getting very upset and saying, no, it's not. It's the language of math. It's not the language of science. The math is the universal language. And when you're learning math, you're learning this language. It doesn't matter if you're in Russia, if you're in China, or if you're in America. It's the same either way. Negative 2 squared means square the 2, then negate it. Negative 5 in parentheses squared. And I use the parentheses because this squared refers to the entire input. And in this problem, the entire input is negative 5. Means square the negative 5, which is 25, times 2, 15, and so on. What would the equation be for an object thrown through the air from a height of 8 feet with an upward velocity of 12 feet? H of t equals, we know it's about feet, so it's got to start with negative 16t squared. That's something we simply have to remember. It's always either negative 9.8 or negative 16, depending on English or metric. Metric's negative 9.8, English is negative 16. Then it's upward velocity plus 12t, and then the height it starts from plus et. Okay? Any question about that? Yes?
If the t is in parentheses, does that mean that's
Yes, it means it's the input,
Okay.
or the variable, and what do you suppose t stands for?
X.
No, well, it does stand for the x, but in a word, why do you think they're using t instead of x? Time, exactly, okay? Any other questions? Okay, now, as we take a look at this, a lot of this material we covered yesterday in class, okay? And the day before. We did the experiment where we dropped it from the top of the table, and what we saw was it was a little slow in the beginning, but then it got faster as it went along. So that leads to these concepts which you've been working on the last couple of days, okay? Now, what I would like to do is have you guys do these 4 questions here, and it's an opportunity for you to work on those ideas. If you notice the differences, ready? By the way, you are not the first group to ever struggle in the beginning with this. Look, x squared, negative x squared, 2x squared, and then one of these. This is very typical until you get used to it. So do those 4. We'll go over the answers in just a minute. Nice drink, Hunter.
Told you, Hunter.
It's a very good drink. Why did you say no?
I said, oh.
Oh, okay. Hunter. Very good drink.
Well, my sister gets them, but my dad buys them and he gets mango, but my sister doesn't like mango, so.
Well, this one they sell at Costco. They don't sell mango at Costco.
Um,
About 30 seconds. God bless. Okay, so let's go through these guys here. This says x squared minus 3x, so I put the input in. What's 3 squared? Head the game. 3 squared? 3 squared?
9.
9. Minus 3 times 3?
9.
Negative, 9 minus 9? 0. Good. How many got that right? Sweet. Excellent. Very good. Okay, next. I'm going to plug in a negative 3. Now this means to square it, then negate it. So let's go one step at a time. What is the negative 3 squared, which means negative 3 times negative 3? What is that? Positive 9. Then I need to negate it and get what? Negative 9. So let's just go through and show that little piece here of that. We said first we got to square negative 3, which means squaring something is multiplying it by itself. What is 3 times 3? What is 3 times 3? 9. Then I'm multiplying by a negative, so I have to switch the first sign, so it's positive 9. But then over here it said negated, so I get negative 9. Now, what's negative 3 times negative 3? Positive 9. So far I have negative 9 plus 9, that is 0. Next one, square it, double it, minus 3. So what's 5 squared? 25. Double? 50. Minus 3?
47.
47. Very good. Evaluate here. I'm going to plug in a negative 5. I'm going to square negative 5. What's negative 5 times negative 5? 25. Then I'm going to do plus 4 times negative 5 minus 3. What's 4 times negative 5? Come on.
20.
So I get 25 minus 20 minus 3, which is 2. Okay, any questions? Try B. Question?
No, I got the answer.
All right, first, 9 squared, what do we get?
81.
81 times 2?
162.
162. 7 times 9?
63.
So I get 162 minus 63, which that part so far is 99, plus 4 is
103.
103. Very good. Okay, so that is your ability to calculate quadratics, to be able to plug in an input, generate an output for different quadratic functions with negatives, coefficients in front of the x squared, and so on. Any questions? All right. Now we're going to go a little bit more into a graph. And it's at this point in time that I feel very badly that I think we did these exact 2 questions yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't need to do those again. It's at this point in time that I feel really, really bad that our computers are so old it won't work with YouTube. Because this is actually a pretty cool video. And if you go home and check it out, some guy with a little bit of a beer belly and no shirt on and a bathing suit climbs up a ladder in Las Vegas. And he gets to the top of the ladder. And it's like honking high. 36 feet above the ground. So he gets all the way up there, and he walks out on the end, and he soaks up the applause. And then he dives, like a swan.
Wait, did you say die?
Dives. But the suspense is that he might die. Because there's a pool with a foot of water in it. It's one of them little kid pools.
People are so stupid.
Right? But he does a belly flop.
Ouch!
Right?
Does like someone like explode? Cause it's like
He must have some serious abs behind that beer belly. So as he hits the water, he's perfectly fine. He gets up, he takes bows, and so on and so forth. But as you see him jump, God bless, he makes a perfect parabola all the way to the bottom. So that's what the video shows. And this is a graph of what he does during his dive. So let's go through and actually create this graph so we can get an idea of what's going on. Now, clearly, if he dives off of the top of this thing, it's not going to take long for him to get into the water. That's why for time, instead of using whole numbers, we use small decimals like this. I'm going to need someone's help. Does anybody here have a calculator with them? Mary? Starting tomorrow, when you come in the room, grab one of the calculators from the big box or your own, whichever you might have. Okay, you take it out. You're going to tell me. I'm going to tell you what to do. That's a pretty calculator.
copied me.
Oh, we have, is that a graphing calculator? No,
Yeah.
it is a graphing calculator. It's a very thin graphing calculator with a hot pink body on it. This is a different looking calculator. School provides boring black and white ones. Okay.
The blue.
All right, so here's the deal. Here's the function. 36 minus 16t squared. There is no upward velocity because the guy walks right to the edge and he just falls off. Okay? So if he jumped up with any velocity, then we would have to put a number in the middle. I could put the negative 16t squared plus 36. Let me just write it that way for 1 second so that you can see. I could write this negative 16t squared plus 36. Remember, it's always negative 16t squared because it's feet. The 36 is the height he started from. In between would be the upward velocity, but because he doesn't jump up, the upward velocity is 0. So do I need to write the middle term? No. And remember that I could switch the order. As long as the 16 is negative here, and the 36 is positive here and here, they're equal. Okay? Just commutative property. So if I plug in a 0, I get 36. That part I didn't need Mary's help for. Now we start with Mary's help. Ready? I want you to do negative 16 times 0.33 squared.
I do square.
There should be an x squared button on the left side.
The second.
Or just press the caret
Oh,
button.
yeah.
What's that?
The caret.
You could but do the caret button and then 2 if you wanted to. And then plus 36. And what do you get?
34.25.
Okay, so let's go 34.3. Okay, next, let's do negative 16 times 0.7 squared. That wasn't me, just to be perfectly clear.
57.7.
Negative 6, and then plus 36, what do we get?
You do it.
Okay, negative 16 times 0.7 squared plus 36.
It's too much pressure. Plus 36?
Yep.
28.16.
Okay, so we'll go 28.1. And then if I plug in a 1, I can do that in my head. That's 20. And now let's do negative 16 times 1.125 squared.
Wait, how come that one isn't 28.2?
It could be. I don't really care because I can't be that exact on this graph anyway. So
Plus 36?
plus 36, yeah.
That's my 15.75.
Okay, so let's call this 15.8.
No.
Next, negative 16 times 1.25 squared
You can't read it.
plus 36.
1.1.
1.25.
Squared.
11, okay.
What's the one before?
Now, negative 16 squared, pardon me, negative 16 times 1.33 squared,
7.6976.
okay, 7.6, so we'll make this 7.7. And last, I think this is going to work out to be 0. Negative 16 times 1.5 squared plus 36. I'm almost positive that's 0. So now, time to graph. Ready? 10, 20, 30, 35, so 36 is right here. So at time 0, we're at 36.
Where's 36? Oh, 30.
Now, at 1/3 of a second, look, this is a half a second here. This is 1 second. This is 2 seconds, 3 seconds. So at 0.33, which is right about here, I'm at a height of 34.3, which puts me right around there. Next up, at 0.7 seconds, which is about here, we're at 28.1, which is right around here. Next up, we are at 1 second, and I'm at 28 feet. 25, 6, 7, 8.
How do you even see this?
It's a little difficult, but work with me. I know what I'm doing here. Oh, I'm sorry. This is 20 feet, so it's right here. And then next up, 1.125 at 15.9, which is right about here. And the next one is 1.2511. And then it's 1.33 at 7.7, which is here. And then 1.5 is 0. So if I draw this graph, I make that shape. And that would be the shape of Beer Belly Man falling off the diving board into the pool. Here's the diving board. He falls, splat, right when he hits here. Water sprays all over the place. Okay? This, if I draw the other half over here, this is a picture of a shape that we call a parabola. And a parabola always happens whenever the biggest variable is squared. You will always get that shape every single time you do it. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay, so we finished up basically yesterday. Now tomorrow, we'll actually start using our graphing calculator to graph this. Okay, you know what I mean. Thursday. Hasta la vista. Vaya con Dios. Toodaloo. Ta-ta. Arrivederci. Smile a lot. Ciao. Arrivederci. Yes.
Can you write me a pass because I'm not gonna make